Conrad Motorsport stable, the legendary Conrad Motorsport team, and I believe that was Franz Conrad himself acting as umbrella man for Axel Jeffries, the always rapid racer, the 28-year-old from Zimbabwe. Sebastian von Gartzen alongside him in the Racing Experience Duquesne. If you are new to LMP3 racing, all of these cars run identical engines, 5.6-litre thunderous Nissan V8 motors. And there are 3 different chassis constructors on the grid. The overwhelming majority is Duquesne, and Donnar Munding there in another of the Duquesne chassis. We also have, of course, the Ginettas. There are 3 of them, 2 from Conrad Motorsport, including your pole sitter Axel Jeffries. You've also got Danny Sufi, the American racer in the 22 car, the sister Conrad Motorsport Ginetta, and then Gebhardt, the iconic sports car racing team of yesteryear, back again with Michael Lyons and Jakob Erlbacher. They are running the number 70, and then there is also a Soul Ligier JSP 320 that is in the hands of Berkay Bessler, and of course Marvin Dienst, who is also sharing duties in GT Masters this weekend as well, with the Drago Racing ZVO Mercedes team. So he is a very busy man this weekend. Lots and lots of racing to do. And of course, they are our championship leaders. However, they start quite a way down the order. We will see the grid in just a moment. Certainly, it's going to be a golden opportunity for some of the other teams to claw back some points in this inaugural season of the Prototype Cup Germany, which is a joint venture between the Creventic team, the organisers of the 24-hour series, and of course the ADAC as well, bringing the thunder of LMP3 competition to the national stage in Germany. Of course, we started off in Belgium, the first ever race of Prototype Cup Germany taking place at Spa-Francorchamps. We were at Nürburgring just a few weeks ago at the truck meeting. Now we're here at Lausitz. As we alluded to, it is Axel Jeffries on the pole position. He'll be sharing with Maximilian Hacklander. Sebastian von Gartzen with Gary Hauser for company in that second place car. Donnar Munding and Matthias Luten are next, with Sebastian Arenram and Jesse Salamalto in 4th place. Oscar Tunio starts 5th along with Danny Sufi. Row 4 of the grid, Michael Lyons starting the Gebhardt competition. Ginetta, Berkay Bessler, our championship leader, along with Marvin Dienst, starting from just 8th on the grid. They've got some work to do. And then Leonard Weiss rounding out the order on this grid. Now, there will be 2 formation laps because of these rather treacherous conditions that have been presented to the teams and drivers this weekend. That is more than understandable. As you can see, it is rather torrential out here. It's not quite as bad as it was a little earlier on when the ADAC GT Masters were racing. However, the rain hasn't really abated at any point, and the conditions are certainly befitting wet tyres. I somehow doubt anyone is going to be on slicks at any point in this race, even if the rain stops falling. Axel Jeffries, then, a driver with so many years of experience in GT racing. Racing in the likes of the GT World Challenge Sprint Cup and Lamborghini Trofeo categories. Even came up through the junior single-seater ranks in the old FIA Formula 2 Championship and Indy Lights. There you see the championship as it stands. Very close for second place between Munding and Luten and Jeffries there. 53 points for that duo and 52 for Axel Jeffries. But the runaway championship leaders up to this point, very much Marvin Dienst and Berkay Bessler. Marvin Dienst and Berkay Bessler racing for TopSport WRT. They've taken 3 wins so far this year. The race they didn't win, they didn't score in, so they've had a perfect run of wins in the races that they have finished. Of course, the only other race winners this year so far were Mads Silhaug and Freddie Hunt. I know that Freddie Hunt is racing this weekend in a Citroen C1 of all things, competing up against his girlfriend Amy Watts at Brands Hatch. So he's not here, and I don't think they'll be joining us again in the 2022 season, but I know Freddie Hunt is keen to come back to Prototype Cup Germany, and the momentum of the championship is only growing, and I'm sure the grid for 2023 is going to look pretty spectacular. You see there that the timer is running already. We started the clock as the second formation lap started, so we're not quite going to get the full 55 minutes, but we are going to hear the thunder of these Nissan-powered LMP3 machines in just a few moments. 2x2 rolling start, of course, here in the Prototype Cup Germany Championship, brought to you by Creventic and ADAC. They're in 2x2 formation now, then rolling out of turn 12, the final corner of this 2.16 mile, 3.478 kilometer oval. Roval, or I should say, of course, the road course configuration. And they are underway, and it looks like a good start there from the second row. But is it going to be Axel Jeffries in the lead? I don't think it will be, because I think the best start of all has gone to von Gartzen, but he's outbraked himself into the first corner. He's going to have to go straight on. Everyone else just about making it through, although I think the second of the Conrad cars there, Danny Sufi, ended up getting a little bit of contact from the rear. Donar Munding then, who started well from the second row of the grid, is our leader, and struggling his way through the makeshift chicane on the oval there was the number 12 car of von Gartzen. Von Gartzen rejoins the race in the mid-pack. He certainly didn't gain an advantage from straight lining the first corner, so I think he'll be safe from the stewards. But Axel Jeffries in trouble, so is the other Conrad Ginetta. A big spin there for Danny Sufi. He finds himself pointing in the right direction, though, and he continues on. But dramatic first lap as anticipated in these tricky conditions. And you can see Axel Jeffries under a lot of pressure. Diving to the inside there is Oscar Tunyo, who has had a fabulous first lap. He's challenging for second place on Axel Jeffries in that 33 car. That is a Rinaldi Racing entry, the sole Rinaldi Racing Duquesne racing in this weekend's event. The penultimate round, of course, of the ADAC Prototype Cup. The season finale will be at the Hockenheimring in October. There's Axel Jeffries bouncing across the main straight here in that second place. Donar Munding with a good lead here. Already out to 2.3 seconds by the end of the first lap. So he was quick off the line. He's been quick ever since as Donar Munding. It doesn't seem as though Axel Jeffries' car is particularly liking these conditions, and straight on has gone the 72 car. That's Aaron Ram, who has clearly missed his braking point at the first corner. So for the second time in as many laps, we see someone straight lining the first sector of the circuit. Of course, the road course here at Lausitzring deviates from the oval at turn 1 and rejoins on the back straight. And a few people have missed turns 1 through 5 already in this race owing to outbraking themselves. Axel Jeffries then, still under pressure from Tunyo behind. How is the gap looking between himself and Donar Munding? Well, Munding has made up more time on this lap. I think the gap may be out to something like 4 seconds by the time they cross the line next time. We're getting a replay here of the start. Keep an eye on the car on the outside of the front row. Straight on went von Gartzen in the first couple of corners, and there was a little bit of contact further back, and then of course we saw Danny Sufi with the spin. Managed to get the car pointed the right way again. And another drama for Aaron Ram as well. We saw him straight line the first corner earlier this lap, and it seems as though he's gone rally crossing for good measure. Well, it's a good thing that that sixth back machine isn't a hire car. And there is the 22 of Danny Sufi going straight on as well. Seems as though these drivers are really struggling to get the cars stopped into turn one. It sounds like Sufi might be hesitant in general there. I think he might have been waiting to rejoin the race at the back of the pack rather than having a problem. Just saw there a shot of Leonard Wies in the WTM racing entry that he shares with Torsten Kratz. Now, in qualifying, Leonard Wies really did struggle a bit for traction and grip. He had several spins this morning in first quali. Hopefully, they've been able to work on the setup since then. It was slightly wet, slightly less damp than it is now when they partook in qualifying this morning, but it was still wet out there at the break of dawn when qualifying took place for this race. Donar Munding didn't quite have the ultimate pace in qualifying, started on the second row of the grid, but he's showing his speed now in the race, albeit 0.8 of a second taken out of his lead on that lap by Axel Jeffries. Axel didn't quite look like he had the confidence in the early stages of this one, but now, as the race wears on, it seems as though Axel Jeffries is starting to wind up that Ginetta. The G61 LTP3, of course, we're in the second generation of LMP3 cars now, and the Ginetta was the first ever LMP3 car debuting in 2015 at Silverstone. So Ginetta have been in it for the long haul. And great to see a team as established and as eponymous with sports car racing as Conrad Motorsport picking the Yorkshire-based manufacturer for their LMP3 campaign. And Axel Jeffries certainly pedaling the car well at the moment, but we do have yellow flags out, and is that because of Donar Munding? We heard gravel. Yes, Donar Munding, the race leader, has gone off the circuit. We saw the yellow flags, we heard the gravel, and there's the confirmation. Donar Munding off track. He will rejoin the circuit, but he's going to do so all the way down in 6th place. Make that 5th place. He's just about got ahead of Michael Lyons, but our race leader, who started so strong, has made a small error, but a very costly one indeed. He does now fall to 6th place. Michael Lyons has got past for Gebhardt Motorsport. But Donar Munding in the Duquesne from the Molnar Motorsport team, another team with plenty of heritage in ADAC GT Masters. They've tasted success. They thought they might get another winner's trophy today. It's looking less likely after that trip to the gravel for Donar Munding. Up into 4th place already is Berkay Bessler, who of course started down in 8th place in the TalkSport WRT Ligier. The one and only Ligier on the grid this weekend. It's not often that Ligier is outnumbered by Ginetta in LMP3 competition, but the Ginetta G61 has gone down a treat with the teams of Prototype Cup Germany. And I tell you what, you can see how stiffly sprung these cars are through some of these corners here at the Lausitzring. They really do bounce around. Of course, carbon tub, very stiff car by the very nature of its construction. But it really is quite violent how those cars are, to use a phrase that's become very popular in Formula One, porpoising through some of these corners. And it's not just reserved for the Ginetta of Jeffries. We're seeing it up and down the order. These drivers really are being shaped, rattled and rolled from lap to lap. We saw in the early stages of the race, it looked like Oscar Tunyo potentially had an edge on Axel Jeffries. He was attacking the Zimbabwean racer for that what was then 2nd place. It's now a battle for the lead, and it seems as though Axel Jeffries has found his groove. This is the battle for 3rd place between von Gartzen and Berkay Bessler, and Bessler hustling to try and find a way through. So treacherous through this first sector of the lap. Mid-speed and low-speed corners. And you can see there from Bessler quite handily just how easily it can go wrong. Those slight twitches can turn into spins in a flash. And von Gartzen clearly measuring the threat from Berkay Bessler, went defensive, perhaps over-defensive into turn 6, and von Gartzen may lose his place here. He holds on around turn 7 to this third position in the Racing Experience entered car. But TalkSport WRT's Berkay Bessler may soon find himself on the very, very provisional podium. There's a long, long way to go. Every single race that TalkSport's car has finished, they have won. Of course, they registered a non-finish in race 1 at Nürburgring last month. Get the power down onto the oval out of turn 12, and it's side by side for third place. Surely Berkay Bessler has the run. It looks like he does. Side by side towards turn 1 now, and Bessler has the inside line. He has a nose ahead, I think. Certainly the inside line preferable for turn 1, and it looks like the move has been made. Yes, it has. Berkay Bessler got a great run out of turn 12, and he's turned that into the third place in this race. You saw them twitching on the paint out of turn 1 as well. Adhesion is very limited here in these conditions at the Lausitzring today. You see there Donner Munding now in 5th place after his trip through the gravel a few moments ago. He's challenging now for 4th, tries to go around the outside. Well, Sebastian von Gartzen. Von Gartzen will hand over to the very experienced Gary Hauser later on. Hauser is a driver who's had lots of success in big open single-seater racing in a GP2 car, among other things. And look at Munding there, getting so close. Donner Munding very brave on the brakes into turn 8, lest we forget that's the corner where he went straight on a few laps ago. So clearly, if he has learnt the lessons, he's applying them to the nth degree. 5 meters later on the brakes, and he would have been into that gravel trap for a second time today. Donner Munding, incidentally, will hand over to Matthias Luton later on. They are a very strong driver combination in that Molnar Motorsport garage. Still don't rule them out for a podium or perhaps a victory here today. At the front of the order, well, we'll come back to the front of the order because there goes Donner Munding. He's managed to get through to 4th place there. Great move from the German racer. Molnar Motorsport see their car back up to 4th place. The former race leader is once again getting towards the podium. I'm sure he's driving with plenty of red mist at the moment, but keeping himself composed there as he got past Sebastian von Gartzen. Axel Jeffries, though, 2.2 seconds clear at the head of the order at the moment. He will hand over to Maximilian Hacklander in the second portion of this race. We are approaching the pit window as well, within 10 minutes of the pit window opening. Driver changes expected from all but one car. Danny Sufi is driving this race solo for Conrad Motorsport, but he will nonetheless have to come in for a pit stop. Mandatory stops, of course, during the pit window here in ADAC Prototype Cup Germany. There is the Racing Experience car of von Gartzen, who is now dropped to 5th place, and he may not be done fighting for position yet because Michael Lyons is closing in. Michael Lyons, a driver who has plied his trade in pretty much every discipline of historic racing going, be it historic Formula 1, Group C cars, 70s Group 6 sports cars, and much more besides. There's very few cars that Michael Lyons hasn't been slotted into at some points, and great to see him here in Prototype Cup Germany in these LMP3 machines. Of course, LMP3 not the only category eligible in Prototype Cup Germany. There's also the CN class. We're yet to see any CN cars in the category, but there is a class available to them. And off track again has gone Donar Munding. Donar Munding has made another mistake, and now he's coming under pressure once more from von Gartzen, who goes around the outside at turn 7 and moves up into 4th place. Von Gartzen back up to P4 then. And Donar Munding at turn 6, I think he just went straight on. Ended up in the grass. He only lost 3 or 4 seconds, but more importantly, he's lost a position. Oh, and you can see just how hard he's having to work. These LMP3 cars, of course, the LMP stands for Le Mans Prototypes. And even though they are the 3rd class of prototype, they are very difficult race cars. You see there Donar Munding going straight on. For gentlemen drivers, these LMP3s can be quite the different prospect from GT3s. Obviously, as prototypes, they are a lot closer to pure racing cars. Not only that, but they are rather less burdened with driver aids. So these guys in these wet conditions really are having to put on a masterclass to keep the car on the straight and narrow. And it looks as though a few of our cameras are struggling with the conditions, as are the drivers. Donar Munding now stuck in a sandwich here between Michael Lyons behind him in 6th and Sebastian von Gartzen ahead of him in 4th. I tell you what, it's been an up and down day at the Molnar Motorsport garage, I'm sure. They've installed a roller coaster in the garage. They've been in the lead, they've seen the car into the gravel, they've seen the car on the grass. They've held pretty much every position in the top 5 at some point in this race already. Axel Jeffries started on pole, but it hasn't been lights to flag. However, he is now doing a good job of holding on to the lead, building the lead as well over Oscar Tuño behind, the Colombian driver, who will hand over to Ecuador's Mateo Villagomez later on in the race. The Rinaldi Racing team currently running 2nd place in the first of the Duquesne chassis. It is currently 3 chassis manufacturers within the top 3 since Berkay Bessler has moved up to 3rd place in that Ligier JSP 320. Reminder, if you are just tuning in and haven't seen LMP3 racing before, all of these cars are running identical 5.6-litre Nissan-built V8 motors, and they shake grandstands like no other. Some of the best sounding modern day racing cars you will see. On your bike, mate, one of the photographers there, not going for an e-scooter, going for something a bit more manual. That's always good to see. 35 minutes and change of this race left to go. Still a few minutes removed from pit window opening. I'm expecting the likes of Axel Jeffries to dive in fairly sharpish once the window opens. In fact, no, Axel Jeffries is one of the drivers I'd expect to stay out till the end, but perhaps we'll see the likes of Sebastian von Gartzen in quite quickly. Berkay Bessler might also be keen to hand the car over to Marvin Dienst, who, of course, raced earlier on today in ADAC GT Masters here at a wet Lausitzring, so he's certainly got the seat time and the experience in the wet weather today. And we'll see whether Dienst can make it a 4th win of the season in Prototype Cup for he and Berkay Bessler. They're currently some 10.9 seconds back from Axel Jeffries in the lead, so it's going to be a hard job for Bessler and Dienst thereafter. But based on the form they've had so far this year, you can't rule it out. Dienst has been exemplary so far. Of course, he started out in junior single-seaters, won the Formula BMW Talent Cup in 2012, did Marvin Dienst. Was the inaugural ADAC Formula 4 champion. And has been a GT racing regular in more recent times, including ADAC GT Masters. He's doubling up this weekend. Now racing for Drago ZVO in ADAC GT Masters. We anticipate that that will be a seat he holds for the rest of the year. Battle for 4th place still ongoing between the two Duquesne chassis. Von Gartzen still holding on to 4th place. Donar Munding and his roller coaster of an afternoon shows no signs of abating or leveling out. Next time by, the pit window will be open. So we'll see who makes the early call to pit. Michael Lyons, incidentally, has fallen off this battle for 4th place a little bit. So it seems as though the Gebhardt Ginetta isn't quite on the pace here this afternoon. We know what Michael Lyons is capable of, but he doesn't seem to be able to quite extract the performance out of the car in these conditions. First man into the pits, Danny Sufi. The pit window has just opened. Within 10 seconds of the window opening, we have our first pit stop, and it is Sufi in the Ginetta G61 from the Conrad Motorsport stable. Now, this car will be in the pits for, I believe, 5 seconds longer than the rest of the pack. This is because the American is a solo driver. Conrad Motorsport then hard at work as the pit stop progresses. You can see that the window a bit longer here in Prototype Cup Germany than ADAC GT Masters. These cars are quite difficult to get in and out of, so I think that's part of the logic and reasoning behind having a slightly longer window. You saw there Donar Munding almost into the grass again at turn 8, and he's fallen a little bit off Von Gartzen on that lap as well, so I wonder if maybe he's had another drama somewhere. No one in the top 2 has pitted. Both Jeffries and Tunyo have pressed on. However, Berkay Bessler is in. So the TalkSport WRT car is in the pit lane. We just briefly saw them trundling into the pits. And Donar Munding runs it wide at the first corner, and those bumps really do affect these LMP3 machines, don't they? There is the TalkSport WRT machine of Berkay Bessler, who's now strapping in Marvin Dienst. Had 3 wins already this year. They lead the championship comfortably. This man, Axel Jeffries, is 3rd in the championship currently. 2nd in the points race at the moment is Donar Munding, along with Matthias Luton. They're on 53 points. Axel Jeffries is on 52. Dienst and Bessler are on 75 points. We still haven't seen Danny Sufi out of pit lane. We've got we've got Franz Conrad there, looking quite animated as the pit stop continues. The engine cover has been off the car. So Franz Conrad, who was due to drive this car and sadly isn't, is watching over and rather hoping he sees his car get back out onto the circuit soon. Franz Conrad has been having a couple of surgeries recently, but we are expecting to see him at the wheel of an LMP3 car in Prototype Cup Germany soon. And Franz is such a legend in GT and sports car circles. Whether he's been racing in Porsches or Celines or whatever else, Franz Conrad has always been a front runner, and there you see The 22 car finally rejoining the race, but the graphic tells a story there. He was 2 minutes over the mandatory pit stop time, so clearly things haven't gone smoothly for Danny Sufi. Into the pits also is Salman Altio, or rather Salman Altio is taking over that car, the Finnish driver. Sebastian Arenram has handed the 72 car over. Into the pits has come our leader, Axel Jeffries, is into pit lane. So Axel will hand over to Maximilian Hacklander. Axel Jeffries then with a great stint, of course. He claimed pole position for he and Maximilian this morning in qualifying. And he now hands over the leading car to Hacklander. Let's see what Maximilian can do. Hacklander, a familiar name in LMP3s and GT cars. Certainly has experience, has good pace, but can he hold on to the lead with the likes of Marvin Dienst out on circuit? Good battle still ongoing for what is currently on the timing screen second position. Von Gartzen and Munding scrapping, and Munding has once again got past Sebastian von Gartzen. I think that's the third time that we've seen that happen so far today. Donar Munding with an up and down race for the Belgian squad. Molnar Motorsport. You see there the Belgian flag on the car. 3 minutes and 50 seconds of the pit window left, so not long until they have to come in. But for now, Donar Munding presses on, as does the driver of the 33, our erstwhile race leader, Oscar Tunyo, the Colombian for Rinaldi Racing. Into the pits has come Sebastian von Gartzen. So von Gartzen has come in. He will hand over to Gary Hauser, the driver from Luxembourg, who has a vast quantity of experience at the wheel of LMP3 machinery. It's very much a racing family, the Hauser family. Both Gary and David Hauser have done hill climb competition in the past. In fact, one of David Hauser's runs in a GP2 car on a hill climb. Yes, you heard me, GP2 car on a hill climb. That was a San hill climb back in 2013. That's accrued 4 million views on YouTube. Well worth a look. It looks like it's sped up, but I promise it isn't. Both David and Gary Hauser have been really fabulous drivers. Oh, there's a moment for Hacklander. Well, we were wondering if Hacklander could build upon the lead of Axel Jeffries after taking over the #2 Conrad Motorsport car. Well, this isn't the best sign, is it? Some off-roading for Hacklander. That's down at turn 10 by pit entry. And unfortunately, he will have lost a lot of time. The gap between Hacklander and Dienst last time was 6.1 seconds. Dienst, who runs a net second place at this stage. Of course, we do need to see where Oscar Tunyo will come out. Tunyo, incidentally, will have to pit this time by. Oh, and another spin for Hacklander. He's been struggling in these wet conditions. And Maximilian Hacklander will now be overtaken, I think, by Dienst. Yes, he has been. There goes Dienst. Just ahead of Maximilian Hacklander. I'm sure Axel Jeffries will be frustrated in the garage. Hacklander on the brakes, and the rear end just got away from him. Very close incident to what we saw in ADAC GT Masters earlier on in the day. Jack Aitken had a very similar spin. It is easily done. Of course, Aitken, a driver with Formula One experience and lots more besides. It can happen to anybody in these conditions. Both Oscar Tunjo and Donar Munding are in. It's also worth noting that there is a pit stop violation on the screen. That is the 11 WTM racing car. Torsten Kratz seemingly having a very, very quick pit stop. About 10 seconds under the minimum stop time, so we'd expect that to be penalised. Hacklander continuing to try and close in on Dienst once more. He hasn't lost too much time to Dienst in the last lap, seemingly, but unfortunately those errors in the early part of his stint may have cost him dearly. You see now that the pit window is closed. So the racing will now resume in earnest. Matthias Luton has rejoined the race as well. We'll see where he is relative to Dienst. I think Luton is behind these two. That's certainly where we'd expect him to be after the stops. Now the big question is, where will the number 33 Rinaldi racing car come out relative to these two that we follow on screen at the moment? Mateo Villagomez is taking over the 33 car. Here it is. Out of the pits now. And it seems as though Villagomez has held on to the race lead that Tunjo had previously. Yes, he has. So Dienst is now in second place. And unfortunately, Maximilian Hacklander, with those spins, has dropped to third, and I think he's had another moment there. Goes from bad to worst for Maximilian Hacklander. These cars are hugely challenging in these conditions, and Hacklander is experiencing that firsthand at the moment. Villagomez then has taken over the car that leads the way, the Duquesne D08 of Rinaldi Racing. There you see the lead between the two. Martin Dienst in second place for TalkSport WRT. I'd say that gap is about 5 seconds. Can Dienst make it up in the remaining 20 minutes of this race? Certainly Dienst is a quality driver, so you wouldn't put it past him. And getting another replay here of Maximilian Hacklander, and this is the moment he had. Oh, a full-on pirouette. Was very lucky that he didn't end up embedded in the gravel there. These are quite shallow gravel traps here at the Lausitzring, but if you plough into them at the wrong angle, you can still end up stranded. So we're into the final 20 minutes of the race, and it is Rinaldi Racing's Mateo Villagomez that leads the way. TalkSport WRT's Marvin Dienst in second place. Oh, and Maximilian Hacklander, who sits in third for Conrad Motorsport in the Ginetta. We see him fighting the car every inch of the way. Car number 11 receiving a 5-second time penalty, so 5 seconds added on to the end of the race time for Torsten Kratz. That car currently in 6th place. And through the chicane at turn 1 has gone Luton in the 21 car. So Matthias Luton has overshot turn 1 in the Molnar Motorsport entry. And look how quick Marvin Dienst has closed in on Villa Gomez. Well, I had a feeling he'd get to the lead. I didn't think he'd do it quite that quickly. Marvin Dienst has pulled a 3-second gap in just one lap. I have to believe there may have been a slight error from Villa Gomez somewhere. But Marvin Dienst is through into the lead of the race as he concludes lap 21 as the leader. This car started 8th on the grid, but Berkay Bessler and Marvin Dienst have again shown their class in the Top Sport WRT car. And there we have the top three, all pretty much in the same shot, although Hacklander is perpetually giving us palpitations with some of the angles that he's throwing as he puts the power down in the Ginetta. Gary Hauser, incidentally, is up to 4th place. So Gary Hauser, for racing experience, has moved up to 4th position. That's because Matthias Luton straight-lined the first sector. Earlier on, we saw him fiddling his way through the chicane on oval turn 1. So Hauser up to 4th place. Can the driver from Luxembourg make it any further up the order? He's certainly got quite a gap between himself and Hacklander, who we see here in 3rd place. It was 18 seconds between Hacklander and Hauser last time. Now, Gary Hauser is a very quick driver, a very experienced driver. But I think that might be at a big ask for the Luxembourg-based racer. There is the Conrad Motorsport Ginetta. Axel Jeffries will be watching on in the garages. Dienst rounds the first corner. Of course, he has the advantage of track experience in similar conditions from the earlier GT Masters race. He is also a very, very experienced driver. Following his attempts at climbing the single-seater ladder, he's developed into a very potent GT and prototype competitor. And I think we can expect great things out of the youngster in years to come. 10 seconds separate the top three. It looks to me as though Hacklander is steadily closing in on Villa Gomez. Yes, certainly closing in. In fact, was a second faster in the first sector alone. Maximilian Hacklander. And it's certainly not for lack of trying. We've seen how hard he's pushing. He's had spins and pirouettes and trips through the gravel. He does seem to now be in his groove. He's closing in on Villa Gomez. Continue to see just how jarring certain bumps are around the circuit for these stiffly sprung LMP3 machines. And Villa Gomez certainly is aware of the fact that there is a pair of Ginetta headlights drawing ever closer. Rinaldi Racing will be egging on their driver. But can Villa Gomez hold on? Of course, Rinaldi weren't present at Spa. They're a team with a lot of history and success. And Hacklander there, has he gone straight on? Not quite, but he's taking a very peculiar line through turn 6. I thought for a minute he'd gone straight on towards oval turn 2. Peculiar though the line may be, it's clearly working because he's closing in on Villa Gomez, who had a massive snap of oversteer coming out of the practically 180-degree turn 7. Turn 7, certainly a challenging corner in these wet conditions. The wet line basically requires you to drive right up to the gravel trap on the edge of the circuit, which leaves you with very little room for error. You can see the dirt coming off the cars in these wet conditions. It has been a treacherous day at the Lausitzring. And here we are with what is developing into a very compelling battle for second place. It's down to 1 second, the gap between the two of them, and it's only going to keep coming down as Maximilian Hacklander bounces over the curb at turn 1. The mini roundabout curb, as I like to call it. Perhaps we could call it the tortoise curb. Either way, it's a disc shape. A lot of drivers like to tackle it wholeheartedly, all 4 wheels in the air. I personally would rather go around it and avoid the spinal pain. Villagomez will be driving through the mirrors at the moment, and there are drifters here this weekend at the Decra Family and Friends Festival here at Lausitzring. I think Maximilian Hacklander should join them in the Ginetta. He's sideways at every opportunity he gets. He continues to push against Villagomez here. But for now, Villagomez is doing a commendable job of keeping a decent pace, and more importantly, keeping Hacklander at bay. I'm sure Maximilian will be replaying those early errors when he took the car over from Axel Jeffries in his head. And he'll be wishing that he'd had a slightly better run of it in the early stages, but a podium would still be a good result. Today marked the first time that we saw a Ginetta on pole position in the newly formed Prototype Cup Germany. Doesn't look likely that we're going to see a win for the Yorkshirean manufacturer, the British firm headed by Lawrence Tomlinson. I'm sure Lawrence is keeping tabs on this weekend with keen interest. And he'll be willing on Maximilian Hacklander. Oh, Hacklander very close at turn 6. Oh, and a spin! Oh, very, very lucky there was Villagomez to not be collected by Hacklander. Thought for a minute that Hacklander was going to be collected in that one. Oh, and another spin for the other Conrad car. Now, where is that on the circuit? That's turn 3. Danny Sufi has had a spin. I think just some standing water still there at turn 2, and well, the rest of the grid won't be terribly pleased with the amount of gravel that's now appeared at turn 3 next time by. We get a replay now of this incident for Villagomez. Just put the power down on a bump, and quite how Hacklander managed to escape without contact, I'm not sure. Slammed it on the brakes, I'm sure, to avoid the collision. And Villagomez ended up pointing the right way and continuing on, but I'm sure there was a collective skipping of heartbeats between the two drivers and probably the two crews that serviced the cars as well. Remarkably, that incident requires no spare parts. Marvin Dienst, meanwhile, remember him? 22 seconds now clear at the sharp end of the order. The Ligier, as you see on your screen, entered by TalkSport WRT. TalkSport, a team, of course, with all sorts of different trophies in their cabinet, be it WRC, ADAC, GT Masters, GT World Challenge, or indeed Prototype Cup Germany, where so far the team have taken 3 victories. They could be about to net a 4th. Maximilian Hacklander pressing on in 2nd place then, after that near collision. Villa Gomez still there in 3rd place. I don't think he's likely to challenge Hacklander again. I think that battle for 2nd place is firmly diffused. I do wonder, though, if this man, Gary Hauser, could maybe catch up to Villa Gomez. There's 7 seconds between them, which is quite a significant gap, but I'm sure Villa Gomez is a little bit more trepidatious behind the wheel now after that significant moment earlier on. Good battle for 6th place here between Matthias Luton in 6th place and Erlbacher in 7th. Matthias Luton and Donner Munding were 2nd in the points coming into this race on 53. Axel Jeffries was 3rd in the points on 52. It looks as though Axel Jeffries will move into 2nd place in the championship. However, Marvin Dienst and Berkay Bessler, currently leading the race, will find themselves quite a long way clear after this race if all finishes as it currently looks. Erlbacher, who of course received the car from Michael Lyons earlier on, still says Michael Lyons on the timing screen. We have it on good authority that it is Erlbacher at the wheel. Erlbacher looking very close now, coming up to the braking zone at turn 10. Can't quite get it done. Goes around the outside, may have a look to the outside again at turn 11. He does. Maybe trying for the run around the back turn 12. I think that's exactly what he's done. Very nicely done. He's still got the outside line as they go through turn 12, but it is too wide between them. A nose ahead by the looks of it for Erlbacher. But Luton will have the inside line for turn 1, and Luton holds on to the place for now. Matthias Luton putting in a good job here. He doesn't want to lose any more places than he already has. But Luton runs in 6th for the time being, ahead of Erlbacher. Salman Alshio still in 8th place, has now gone a lap down on Marvin Dienst, and Danny Sufi 2 laps down at the back of the order. Still side by side though for 6th place. It looks as though Erlbacher may have got it done. Matthias Luton didn't get the car stopped at all for turn 6, and I think he may have lost his confidence there, because suddenly he is a little bit slow, isn't he? Whether it's confidence or mechanical, he's fallen off the back of Erlbacher immediately, and now Salman Alshio is investigating his chances of moving up to 7th place. We saw that number 72 car, the Koirunen Kempi Motorsport entry, backed by Sixt. We saw them in the gravel and having a couple of moments in the first stint while Sebastian Arenram was at the wheel. So Salman Alshio started on the back foot, and he'd like to try and get around the Molnar Motorsport car, certainly. And here he goes, Salman Alshio to the inside. And he gets it done. Very nice driving there from the Finn. It is a all Nordic driver lineup at Koirunen Kempi Motorsport. It's Aaron Ram, who of course is a Swedish driver, and Jesse Salmonaccio, who is a Finnish driver. There's something about Finnish drivers called Jesse, isn't there? Because Salmonaccio also a very quick driver, as is factory BMW competitor Jesse Krohn, who is in the paddock this weekend for GT Masters. Danny Sufi is closing in on Matthias Luton, but he is a lap down on Matthias, unfortunately. Of course, we saw the 22 car have its very, very long pit stop earlier when the engine cover came off, so he's a lap off the Mono Motorsport 21 car. So as close as this scrap is, it is not one for position. Gary Hauser, though, is closing in massively for third place at the moment. Villa Gomez coming under threat. I can see them out of my commentary box window coming out of turn 5 at the moment. And Villa Gomez is closing in on Gary Hauser quite significantly. We continue to watch these two have their scrap. Again, not for position. But Danny Sufi maybe making a point. Here's what I could have done if luck hadn't turned against me in the pit stop. An 8th place finish for the car that sits second in the championship is a bit of a disaster. Matthias Luton and Donna Munding, I think, are going to be poring over the data from today's race and trying to work out what's gone wrong. Speaking of what's gone wrong, what's happened to Erlbacher? Erlbacher has come to a halt out of turn 5. The Gebhardt Ginetta has stranded its driver. They're now underway again. I think he reset the car. Your classic motorsport control alt-delete process. But Erlbacher has fallen down to 8th place. Matthias Luton then has moved up to 7th place as a result of that. There is our race leader, Marvin Dienst. Dienst has built a lead now of 31.7 seconds over Hacklander in 2nd place. Maximilian Hacklander, who had a rather dramatic stint, at least in the opening stages, had lost the lead before the pit stop window was completed. And Marvin Dienst saw his GT Masters entry retired in the hands of Jan Marszalkowski earlier today after contact. But no such misfortunes in today's race. Here is the battle I was talking about a little earlier on. This is the scrap for 3rd place between Villa Gomez and Gary Hauser. So Matteo Villa Gomez trying to hold on to this podium for Rinaldi Racing, and Gary Hauser would very much like to capitalise. Neither man can blame their car. It's identical Duquesne DOH chassis. And Hauser has been within a second for the last several laps. Can he find a way through as the clock rapidly approaches the 0-second marker? Hauser looks to the outside at turn 1. They are beginning what is the penultimate lap. Of course, we add +1 lap to the end of the 55-minute race duration. And Hauser will be all too aware that he's got less than 5 miles until he sees the checkered flag. He's running out of time to make the move. Villa Gomez twitchy there into turn 6. He's run it wide, and that could be the opportunity. It is the opportunity that Gary Hauser needed. Gary Hauser then up into 3rd place for racing experience. As it stands, he and Sebastian von Gartzen are due a visit to the podium. And unfortunately for Villa Gomez, Rinaldi Racing, and indeed his co-driver Oscar Tunyo, they are now demoted to 4th place. Just a snap of oversteer as he braked for T6, and almost a bit of a moment there for Marvin Dienst on this final lap. Matthias Luton has seen the blue flags now and makes it easy for Marvin Dienst. Dienst is on his final lap of the race. Once again, Bessler and Dienst have been a cut above the rest here in ADAC Prototype Cup Germany. The mixed German-Turkish pairing, along with TalkSport WRT, have set up this Ligier wonderfully. It's a 4th victory of the 2022 season for TalkSport WRT. Marvin Dienst and his co-driver Berkay Bessler, they extend their championship lead with a first race victory here at the Lausitzring. It's going to be quite the wait for anybody else to cross the line. At least someone who's not a lap down. Just crossing the line there was Erlbacher in 8th place. Here's our 2nd place man, appropriately, in the number 2 car, Maximilian Hacklander. Crossing the line now, or just about to cross the line, I should say, in 2nd place on behalf of both himself, Axel Jeffries and Conrad Motorsport. They take 2nd place. 33 seconds. Ultimately, the gap between Marvin Dienst and the number 2 Conrad Motorsport Ginetta. Will be racing experience in Gary Hauser, the first of the Duquesne chassis home. A 3rd place overall finish for Gary Hauser, who crosses the line to take a solid victory. A solid podium result in this first race of the weekend. It's been so long since Marvin Dienst crossed the line as the race winner that I practically forgot it had happened. Dienst has been in a class of his own in his stint, and Berkay Bessler did a great job of working his way up from 8th in the early stages of the race too. Villa Gomez crossed the line in 4th ahead of Torsten Kratz. And I believe that Salman Autio has just crossed the line for 6th place. Yes, he has. So all of the cars got to the end of the race, which is good to see. These LMP3 cars are designed for endurance racing, so they are pretty reliable machines. And very loud cars as well. Marvin Dienst, once again, combining with Berkay Bessler to make a formidable duo. They had a non-finish at the Nürburgring. And it looks as though Danny Sufi has come to a halt there at, I believe, oval turn 1, yes. So that is the first corner where he has had an issue. We saw that car with its engine cover off in the pit stops earlier, so I just wonder whether that's a continuation of some issues for the American racer. There's Axel Jeffries having a bit of a chat there momentarily with Marvin Dienst. Double dipping as Marvin Dienst this weekend, of course. Splitting his efforts across the Prototype Cup Germany and ADAC GT Masters paddocks. There is the number 7 car. There is Marvin Dienst. And there, after a very dramatic stint, is Maximilian Hacklander, who I'm sure will be delighted to have got his podium. He'll be disappointed, though, with some of the mistakes he made early in the stint. Franz Conrad and Axel Jeffries greet Maximilian Hacklander as Berkay Bessler and Marvin Dienst once again are due winners' trophies here in Prototype Cup Germany. Jeffries and Hacklander 2nd. Von Gartzen and Hauser with a late lunge from Gary Hauser moving into 3rd place. Villa Gomez 4th, Torsten Kratz 5th. Salman Autio, Luton, Lyons and Sufi our 9-car finishing order, although of course it wasn't Lions, it was Jakob Oelbacher in the Gebhardt Ginetta towards the end of the race, just never updated on the timing screen. There is the Racing Experience number 12, Duquesne. Third place for them. Jeffries and Hacklander taking second place for Conrad Motorsport. Not quite the result they would have wanted from their pole position, but more solid points in the board. Solid points that will move them up to second in the championship. But the runaway leaders of this championship, and potentially a team that could walk away with the championship this weekend, Dienst and Berkay Bessler. So it would take misfortunes for both Molnar Motorsports and the number 2 Conrad car tomorrow to see the championship go to TalkSport WRT tomorrow. However, mathematically, it could be possible that TalkSport WRT leave the Lausitzring as provisional champions. I'm sure we'll see the championship standings and such before the end of the broadcast, but what I can tell you is it will be a perfect 100 points for Dienst and indeed for Berkay Bessler. There are the championship standings right on cue. So a 28-point gap between Dienst and Bessler, and Axel Jeffries in second place. Munding and Luton really seeing a dent to their fortunes there in third place. Von Gartzen and Gary Hauser sniffing a championship top 3 at the moment, just 1 point back from Donar Munding and Matthias Luton. You see the rest of the points scrolling through. We've had some class drivers in this category in 2022. We're expecting more entries and more incredible driving talent and legendary racing teams in Prototype Cup Germany for 2023. The likes of Conrad Motorsport and Gebhardt and TalkSport WRT, Molnar Motorsport, so many fabulous teams in this paddock this year. Rinaldi Racing, Racing Experience, all of these teams have huge amounts of silverware back at their headquarters. No silverware, unfortunately, today for Danny Sufi, though. The US-flagged driver finishing in last and then pulling over immediately after the flag. It seems as though that Ginetta has suffered a couple of problems today. Yeah, Axel Jeffries all smiles there alongside Maximilian Hacklander. Let's see if we can listen in at all. I think a majority of this conversation is in languages that I certainly don't speak. Answers on a postcard if you can translate, but nonetheless, great to see everyone in good spirits on the podium. And no sheep herding required either from the ADAC personnel. Everyone is there and ready to receive their trophies. Patrick Simon has made an appearance on the podium. I wonder if he's due to do some presentation work. It certainly looks like that is the case. Of course, Patrick, a vastly experienced driver himself. We were chatting about it in hospitality yesterday. We think the last time he raced here was as far back as 2002, if you can believe that, in Porsche Carrera Cup. So Patrick Simon presenting these podiums and beckoning the drivers onto the podium. The first team that he will send up onto the third step, Gary Hauser and Sebastian von Gartzen for Racing Experience. Gary Hauser in the red and black overalls there. The signature colours of Racing Experience. And certainly, I'd say that today's conditions made the race an experience. I think there was a butterfly there on Sebastian von Gartzen. Clearly a pure soul. Animals are attracted to him. Maximilian Hacklander and Axel Jeffries taking second place. The watchful eye of Franz Conrad watching on from Parc Fermé, as Axel Jeffries, who has long been a driver for Franz, takes to the podium with Maximilian Hacklander. Dienst and Berkay Bessler once again on the top step of the podium for the 4th time this season. 100 points already. Team rep then from TalkSport as we hear the anthem. There you go, TalkSport WRT represented on the top step of the podium once again in ADAC Prototype Cup Germany. And there are the first place trophies presented by Hermann Tomschick. Good representation of just how many big names are involved with ADAC Prototype Cup Germany. Uwe Buchhardt presenting the second place trophies. And Volker Crane from ADAC Berlin-Brandenburg presents the third place trophies as the teams applaud their men. Gary Hauser and Sebastian von Gartzen, of course, receiving those third place trophies. Yet more trophies delivered to the top step occupants. And I believe that's Torsten Kratz there, receiving the trophy class podium. I thought that was a rep from WRT. Of course, that would not make sense given he's not wearing WRT gear. He wins the trophy class then, and everyone up onto the podium. Schumacher selection, sparkling wine in the offing for our teams as the Prototype Cup Germany competitors will ready up for another 55-minute race tomorrow, qualifying to come as well on Sunday morning for these competitors. But for now, they get to celebrate on a Saturday night here at the Lausitzring, and the hardest and biggest celebrations, I'm sure, will be taking place in the TalkSport WRT garages. It's a 4th win and a comfortable championship lead for Berkay Bessler and Marvin Dienst. It's going to take misfortune for their competitors for them to be a factor in the championship, or rather for them to win the championship this time. However, they will no doubt exit Lausitzring with a big championship lead if they can continue this form tomorrow.